Hey guys, it's Hink here. So today I have a very special one that I'm going to bring to you. And this is actually going to be a three-part series. It's about this survey that I found from the Bad Girls Bible. You guys know how I feel about like blasphemy and stuff like that. But anyways, it talks about over 1,300 women's responses from everything when it comes to like, what is the ideal size? How important is size? What makes like big size good? What makes it bad? What size is going to make me more likely to cheat? And so all of those topics are going to be covered. So guys, we are going to go through this step by step. Trust me, you do not want to miss this. Honestly, guys, this one was a hard one. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to stroke out so many times just from how fudging irrational and illogical some of these responses are. I'm not going to tolerate any like misogyny in the comments, but I do want to know what you think because some of this stuff is so freaking outlandish. Like, you are not going to believe that like women actually reported this. How did they go about doing this? Well, apparently they sent a survey via the internet to over 1,300 women. Now, I'll have Kelly put some of the graphics up on the screen where you can actually see the demographics that were included, but it's basically largely heterosexual women, some including actually homosexual women, this is weird if it's a survey about PPs, but you know, sure, they've had many experiences, whatever. But guys, at the end of the day, we have to start right here, okay? This is a survey result. Take everything that is said with a grain of salt. First of all, there's something that's called selection bias, where basically the women that chose to participate in this survey have a specific bias. For example, maybe more conservative women would say like, oh, this is a survey about my penis size preference. Like, absolutely, that's too invasive. I'm not going to answer that question. This survey, just the women who filled it out, self-selects for a special type of woman that would feel comfortable reporting. Yeah, it's anonymous, what size they like, all of that information. Now, guys, this is potentially my bias coming in here, but I have a feeling that the women who would feel comfortable answering questions about their sexual experiences are the women who are going to be more comfortable with their sexuality and are also going to be the women that are more likely to have a higher body count. Now, why would that matter, Hink? If they are reporting about the size that they prefer, I've talked about this study here, which actually shows, so if you look at the number of partners and penis size, the women that are reporting that penis size is very important in both length and girth are the women who have more than 5 partners. So the more partners you have, the more likely you are to value a larger penis size. And so if this survey therefore includes more women who have a higher body count, it's going to skew all of the results away from kind of your average or your more normal woman. Also, like, there have been so many actual published studies showing how dog shit the results from actual survey data are, regardless of what the survey is, why it is inaccurate, and why it doesn't reflect kind of the general sentiment or a larger population at whole. For one, there's something called the social desirability bias, and that basically means that people, when filling out surveys, are going to be more likely to respond in a certain way that they think the study is going for. For example, if you give a study on what pee-pee size you like, might skew more women to say, I like a big pee-pee size because that's what's more socially acceptable. There have been studies proving something that's called recall bias, which basically is you don't recall the actual, like, oh, I was with a guy last night. How big was that guy? He was actually 6 inches, but you might be like, oh, he was only 5 inches or 8. The point is that you're going to be more likely to report it inaccurately when you recall it, okay? And so what this study here is all done based on prior recall. There's something called non-response bias. Once again, I alluded to this with the selection bias, but that certain women that are, like, once again, more conservative are more off-put from talking about discussions of like pee-pee size. Like, guys, there's no way in hell that my girl would be like, survey size about pee-pee size, like, oh, let me fill that out. Or like, think about your mother, okay? Maybe some of y'all have some freaky deaky mothers, but like, how many of y'all's mothers would feel comfortable filling out a survey regarding pee-pee size? Let me know in the comments. And also send me your mom's IG handle. Guys, there's something that's called self-selection bias, where the people who feel most passionately about certain topics are going to be the ones that are going to respond. The women that feel more passionately about pee-pee size being important are going to be the ones that are more likely to respond on the survey. There's something that's called mismeasurement in sensitive topics, guys. Here's a study here that actually shows, I want to actually read this to you because it is so pertinent when it comes to this. Clement argues that the more intrusive a survey, like a survey about fudging pee-pee size, the higher the barrier to intimacy and the more likely you are to encounter participation bias that overestimates variability and frequency of sexual behavior. since those conservative or normative lifestyles are less likely to participate. Exactly this freaking article, actually real psychology about this, guys. It's important to take the time to make this disclaimer because you have to know when you see surveys like this moving forward that it's pretty much dog shit. Now for the actual article, okay, let's get into it. So they start by saying 91% of women say that size does matter. And then for some reason they want to include it can be too small. So yeah, it can be too small or it can be too big. And they include that data later. So I don't know why they're trying to make it seem like it's just a small size thing. Now, guys, how they opened up this, just let me read this for you, okay? Despite an exhaustive search, we cannot find any existing sexual study or sexual research that examine the relationship between penis size and sexual satisfaction for women during penile vaginal sex. I have an entire video. It's called basically Size and Satisfaction, where I talk about no less than six published studies talking about the relationship between size and satisfaction. So off the rip, I'm like, all right, this is horseshit because they didn't even do a thorough research of what exists. So then they go on to put up this graphic that like women do not like small penises. Guys, it's going to be vitally important that you keep in mind, this is just asking, hey, woman, what do you think about pee-pee size? What do you think is too big or too small? The reason why that's important is because women in general have no gosh darn effing idea what 6 inches, how long it actually is here, okay? I'm going to play some clips here of women that are trying to measure. They have a blank ruler and they pull it out to try to show what measurements are what.
Babe, pull 6 inches.
About this much.
6 inches, okay.
Yeah.
Like there? Ish?
Uh,
That's a bit short.
Show me, without looking, 6 inches on the tape measure.
Oh!
Let me know when to lock it in.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Maybe like there.
There?
As you can see here, now this is just a small example. Like, how do you expect women to be accurate in this survey when they don't even know what 6 inches is? If they were actually trying to do this and actually get real information, they would have 3D models to say like, okay, pick the model that you actually like. Now, there has been evidence of this with the 3D model. It's one of the first videos that I did where women actually chose the 3D model that they like. And guys, guess what? It's about 6 inches in length by about 4.8 inches in girth. Right along average or maybe just above it when it comes to length. So this graphic here shows the percentage of women that think that the size is too small with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches along the bottom. This is just absolute horseshit. There's still about 15% of women that think 6 inches is still too small when that's a full standard deviation bigger than average according to what study you look at. And guys, like, man, we're gonna get so much of this. I gotta bring it down. Penis size matters. Women don't like small peepees.
Don't do the voice.
So look at the erect size on the left and the actually percentage of women who find it too small to be satisfied. Almost 8% of women say that 8 inches or bigger is too small to satisfy them. You guys have seen my videos about like real statistics before, okay? Guys, just keep in mind, the adult star Johnny Sins is 7 inches. 7 inches non-bone pressed on a good day. These are women saying that one of the most famous stars in general that's going to be way too small for them. And there are really almost 2% of women that say 12 inches is not big enough for them? Like, are you serious? So guys, look at this number compared to actual real science on penis size. When you're looking at even just the percentage of having a peepee that's 7 inches, is about 1 in 50. Once you get to start to be about 8 inches, it's about 1 in 500,000 to 1 in a million, okay? Once you get above really 9 inches, 9.5 inches, especially bone pressed, the chance of being that big is statistically impossible. And not statistically impossible, but it's statistically near impossible. There might be that like 1 in 4 billion guy out there, okay? But they're saying there's almost 2% of women that say 12 inches is not big enough for them. Like, you guys see why this is so goddamn triggering, right? At least they start to redeem themselves here. So the graphic says women don't like big peepees. 83.4 of them say a peepee can be too big to be satisfying. So there is some common sense here, kind of. And they actually put up a graphic here where they actually start to say that above 7 inches, there's a negative correlation between a larger size and satisfaction, meaning the larger the size, the less the satisfaction. But guys, like, just look at the percentage of women just reporting that they've had 12 inches. They haven't, okay? Guys, if you saw my video on the size queen, she talks about how she's had 2 guys that are 12 inches when you can prove with measurements that these guys are nowhere near 12 inches. They're not even near 10 inches. The guys that she's talking about are closer to about 8 to maybe 9 inches on a good day. It just doesn't make any sense, guys. Hey, guys, like listen to this. In fact, 5 out of 6 women, 83.4%, find a 12-inch PP to be too big to be sexually satisfying. It's just the most ludicrous shit I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh my God. And even that stat. So that's still saying that 16.6% of women don't find a 12-inch PP to be too big. It's, God, it just hurts my brain. And guys, I've talked about this before. You should watch my video on dread. But I have so many different videos, at least 2 other ones, including Brandy Love, where they talk about their encounters with dread. What they say uniformly is that it's extremely uncomfortable. They hated it. They didn't like it. Brandy Love even compared it to childbirth. You had these adult stars that are talking about the size of these guys and saying that they hate it. People that do this for a living, professionals, but yet there's, 16% of women that say, no, 12 inches is plenty for me. No, I can handle that. Like, it's just ludicrous. Over half the women reported that a 9-inch PP is too big to fully satisfy them. Yeah, because the biggest of the big stars are maybe 9 inches. Like, it would blow you guys' freaking mind how many adult stars are not even 9 inches in length bone pressed. Once again, Johnny Sins is 7 inches in length. And so we're talking about 2 inches bigger than him, guys. And guys, just look at this graphic, okay? Women do not like very big. Women who find it too big to be fully satisfied. I mean, at least you have some percentage of women that say even 5 inches is too big for them to be satisfied. But good Lord, looking at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's just ludicrous, man. It's just ludicrous. It would be like asking, how much money do you feel like is too much money? And it's like people saying, well, I have a bajillion, gajillion dollars. It's like, no, you don't. Not even Jeff Bezos has that. It's just stupid. And so, guys, what about the Goldilocks range? Okay. So on this study, they're saying that the Goldilocks range is between 6 to 8 inches. Guys, if you haven't seen my video on the ideal size, basically the Goldilocks D is what's not too big, what not too small. You can actually go home to it every night and basically do it every day if you needed to. I think maybe if you take this data and decrease it by about an inch, like maybe that's more accurate about what chicks actually want, guys. You have to understand, guys, the average aroused vaginal canal is only about 5.5 inches, okay? And so we're just talking about, I guess, non-bone pressed length here, guys. But for most guys, if you have a low body fat, your erect size is going to be more than enough, and in some cases even longer than the aroused vaginal canal on average. So how does it make sense that women in general would prefer something that is a full, almost inch bigger than the average as far as that Goldilocks range? Now, I guess you're right. It could be, women prefer 8 to 10 inches. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at this point with this study, but that is still far larger than what actually is reality. Now, guys, there's all this talk about like all these extreme numbers, and then they actually include some real science, okay? Let's break it down, okay? So there was a review that looked at erect size, and they said that the average erect length was 5.6 inches. Another study found that it was about 5.11 inches when you actually stretch. And then another study, and then they said based on these studies, the average is somewhere between 5.1 and 5.5 inches. So if you have this real life data, okay, knowing what actual standard deviations are and normal range distribution, how is it that the Goldilocks range is a full inch to 3 inches bigger than what an actual average size is? Like, guys, use your brains. Does this actually make sense? Okay. No, it doesn't, because this is the textbook definition of girl inches, guys. I've already proved to you that they don't know how big 6 inches is when they pull out a ruler. So when you ask, that's what cat.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you news from Houston, Texas.
Take a chill pill, blow some kill, pop the seal.
Guys that are like, have the gall to say, like, how big was your ex? She doesn't effing know, unless she was a hairdryer or worked in carpentry where they have to measure on the regular actual inches. She has no effing idea. So she's some guy that was 6 inches above average. She's going to be like, oh yeah, he was about 7 to 8 inches. Honestly, because that's what he probably told her. But so guys, just like anatomically and statistically, it does not make sense that your averages, which they are conceding is within that range of about 5 to 5.5 inches, but yet there's all these extremes as far as women that oh yeah, I have had 12 inches. Like it's just, it doesn't make sense. Guys, that is going to do it for part 1. And I know what you guys are saying. Hink, why are you so upset? Like, I'm so upset because this shit is so harmful when it comes to actual women reading this and guys reading this. If I would have read this article 5 years ago before I started any of this, it would have been absolutely devastating. It would have crushed my ego to know like what my size was and what women like allegedly actually preferred. You can't actually make your PP bigger, okay? Look in probably the pinned link, guys. I made my actual Hink trial where you can see that on average, using my techniques, guys grew a 1/2 inch in length and a 1/4 inch in girth in 6 months with photos for you to view with your own eyes to prove that this, rather than all those other studies that say, oh, trust me, bro. No, you can view it yourself and make your own conclusions, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Stay tuned for part 2 and part 3, guys. Remember, you're so much more than the size of your D. There's nothing wrong with self-improvement, but you are enough just as you are. Just be the best version of yourself. All right, guys. Peace and love.
Dr. Hink got the plug on the health, yeah. Got you thinking about your wealth, yeah. In his office, no stealth, yeah. Pinnacle of that below the belt, yeah. Checks and balance, he's managing. Working miracles, no damage. Got you covered, no panicking. Stay calm. In the clinic, no vanishing. Yeah, with Doc Hink, it's the way back.